Alright, so for you first time aspiring competitors, one thing that you're going to want to consider in the final weeks of your prep and getting ready to compete is skin prep. Now, when we talk about bodybuilding, we often refer to someone's potential success and what dictates that, and we talk about things like their shape and their muscularity and their conditioning, and those are all the largest parts of bodybuilding, but there's also a cosmetic component that really matters as well. And this is quite, as I said, low-hanging fruit. And if you can just do some simple things, you're going to get the best tan possible and ultimately present your hard work with minimal distractions for the judges. Nothing taking the judges' eyes away from your conditioning, your muscularity, and all your hard work. And if you step on stage with a tan that's streaky and blotchy, with tons of dark marks because you haven't shaved a bunch of areas, it looks dreadful. And especially if you start sweating on stage and it runs, it can really upset your look. So what we want to do is essentially just look at three simple things. We want to look at exfoliation, we want to look at shaving, and we want to look at hydration of the skin as well. Now, what I usually get my clients to do is start thinking about these things about 3 weeks before the show. Now, essentially, if we nail all these three, then when it comes to actually getting your tan and the tanning process, your skin will really accept the tan and it'll look very smooth and even and ultimately be less of a distraction and just present your package better. So, number one, I want to talk about exfoliation. Now, oftentimes, I'll get, especially guys, they'll come to me and say, Kane, well, the sponge or the scrunchie I use in the shower, I know that that gently exfoliates my skin and I use that every day, so surely my skin is appropriately exfoliated for show day anyway. And the answer is no. You'd be surprised that you need to give it a little bit more intent when it comes to exfoliating to accept such a great amount of tan that in any other context would be way too much and excessive and just look weird. But in the bodybuilding context, that's essentially what we're aiming for. It's a lot of tan. We need to be a bit more intentful when it comes to exfoliating to accept this level of tan. So what I would suggest thinking about is about 3 weeks before you compete on average. You can get away with 2, but I would recommend starting with 3. You want to buy exfoliating gloves and exfoliating cream and use both at the same time. And you want to essentially exfoliate every muscle group on your body quite thoroughly without missing any area at all. You want to do that about twice a week, every week, for the final sort of 3 weeks leading up to the show. So Monday, you might do your legs in the shower. Tuesday, you might do the front of your torso. Wednesday, you might do your back, and you might repeat them. Okay, so something simple like that where you've got a bit of a schedule that you can just quickly do it in the shower, but I would really recommend being quite intentful when it comes to exfoliating. You're not trying to scrub your skin off, but you are trying to put a little bit more effort than you usually would into removing all of the potential dead skin cells that are lying on your skin. So that's exfoliating. Now, when it also comes to shaving, one thing that looks horrendous is when somebody has done a really rushed, half-arsed job of shaving for show day, and you can just tell that they had a ton of hair on them and they didn't even think about it, and then the night before they've just tried their best to get it all off in one go and realize they've run out of time and they're stressed and panicking. They've missed a bunch of places. When it comes to getting their tan, it's all dark and you can see the hairs that they missed. It just looks terrible. So what I would do is I would just make life easy for yourself. And what I've done in the past, what I recommend with my clients, especially the males, is buying an electric razor, but one that you can use for your body, not one that you would use for your face. And I would essentially do the same thing as your exfoliation. On the couple of weeks prior to competing, I would shave a different muscle group per day, or at least once or twice a week. So essentially we're just shaving one part of our body or trimming it down with the electric trimmer. We don't need to take it all the way down to the skin. And then a couple of weeks prior, if you're doing this on rotation, however makes sense for you to do it, so you do your legs on the Monday, you might do your front torso on the Tuesday, again your back on the Wednesday, and then do that once a week for the sort of 3 weeks or 2 weeks prior to competing. When it comes to the night before, when you have to shave your entire body, then in that case, you've only got small short hairs in order to get off. And it's much easier to do a good job of. The hairs typically shave off a lot easier, and then it means you can hopefully take your time a little bit more as well. Now, with the whole shaving conversation, one thing that's also good to consider, and ladies seem to do a better job of this because they typically have a bit more experience in shaving their legs and things like that, but again, guys really often mess this up. Guys are getting a lot of the attack in this video, but it's just true, and you see it all the time. If you cut yourself, a lot of times, especially around the legs and up the shins, which is very common, that will produce or bring about a darker tan in the areas that you've cut. And again, it doesn't look good. So want a nice smooth tan. So if you can do yourself a favor and give yourself enough time to shave your entire body, believe me, it takes longer than you think, then take your time. A lot of people are just too rough and they hack at their skin because they're trying to do it in a rush and they're not taking their time, and it ends up with a really bad look. So if you can prepare your shaving by essentially pre-shaving with an electric razor, you've only got small stubbly hairs to think about anyway, then on the day just give yourself a little bit more time, really take your time, try and avoid cutting yourself, because trust me, if you've never done it before, you'll be surprised at how difficult it is. And it should go towards just making your life feel a little bit easier the day before when you're getting ready. Now the third thing is hydration. Now from a water consumption perspective, if you're working with a coach or you have any level of intelligence at all, you should have maintained a fairly consistent, decent intake of water throughout your prep anyway. So this will be obviously the largest component of keeping your skin healthy and hydrated. Now the other thing is just simple moisturizing. Now this is really, really easy, but if you don't usually moisturize your body, I would definitely recommend starting to moisturize twice a day. So in the shower in the morning, and then, or after the shower in the morning, and then after the shower in the evening as well. Very, very easy, but just staying on top of it, because again, if we can do all these things, you will bring about a much better tan as well. Now, in extension of this same conversation, a lot of people ask me about sunbeds and is it wise to start to get a base tan in the months leading up to the show with sunbeds? And in most cases, it is a good idea. And especially if you're of a lighter complexion, then it can really bring about a much darker, better look after you get your coats of tan. If you're a little bit darker complexion, you probably don't need it, but you probably also don't need me to tell you that. But sunbeds, yes, to answer that question preemptively, it is a good idea. Now, the only thing to consider there is sunbeds are applying excessive heat essentially to your skin, and it will dry out your skin. So you don't want to be smashing the sunbeds on the week of the show, or potentially not even the second week before the penultimate week of before the show as well. So a couple of weeks prior to the show, I would just recommend not going to the sunbeds. Give it a couple of weeks where your skin can settle, rehydrate, and then that way, if you've been regular and consistent with attending the sunbeds up until that point, you should maintain a pretty decent color anyway. Give it a couple of weeks away from the sunbeds as to not dry out your skin, go and get your tan, and you'll look tremendous. So those are all the considerations, or the top considerations, with regards to preparing your skin ahead of getting the tan as well. Most people who've booked tan with the federation, or with the federation they're going to compete with, which I would definitely recommend, you will be, a couple of weeks before the show, you will be emailed some protocols and tips by the tanning service as well, a lot of which will essentially just echo some of the things that I've just said. So, if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to get in touch, and I hope this helps.